I have spent so long looking for text analytics tools, and this has been like a perpetual challenge. I've worked on CSAT data for a long time, and there's just never been anything that's quite hit the mark. So when we then looked at Wordnerds, honestly, I mean, we do love it because I think it offers something a bit different to anybody else. Even the really big players, you'd still go, yeah, but can you tell me what's coming out of it organically without having to code anything in? Well, no, you can't do that. But we have topics for everything. And you're like, yeah, but you might not have the topic for the thing that I want, and we don't know what people are saying, all of the time. So, yeah.
I'm Amelia, and I work for Sainsbury's in the CSAT team, all things CSAT, and I'll hand over to Kat.
Thanks, Amelia. And I'm Kat, so I also work in Sainsbury's. I head up what we call our CSAT and customer closeness team. So we do a mix of customer satisfaction tracking, brand tracking, and then broader understanding customers and customer mindsets. So quite a range of things that we cover.
We get around 2 million responses to our customer feedback surveys every year, and obviously, as much as we would love to sit and read through all of them, and we do read through a subset, because obviously we need to know what customers are saying and how they're talking, we physically cannot sit there and read all of those responses, so it is invaluable to have a tool that, as I say, can bucket all of these comments up into themes, can tell you what themes are coming through the most, and also how they're being talked about in terms of sentiment, and also what's kind of changing in terms of the trends as well. So not just always focusing on these are our top themes, but also being able to say to the business, do you know what, actually our customers were really focused on this at the start of the year, and we're seeing a little bit of a shift towards these sorts of themes. So yes, they're still a bit lower level, but they're kind of increasing. So it just gives us the ability to sort of flag that as well.
I think having a tool that can bucket up things like that is really useful, and that we also get lots of information from different sources. So we have our CSAT surveys that Amelia's talking about. We've got social media, we've got a couple of 100,000 complaints that we get each week and contacts to our contact centre. And what we can do with Wordnerds is pull those all into one place and then categorise them in a consistent way. And that's really helpful, because it just means that we get a really clear overview, where historically all of those would have been sitting in different pockets of the business.
Particularly where we have trackers, I think sometimes it's very easy to fall into the trap of we think we know where the main pain points are. But obviously that's based on our survey and their closed questions, and we're asking them to the customers, whereas the comments will really highlight what our customers are talking about. So we do often use the topic analysis just to see if there are any surprises kind of coming through.
Outside of the world of CSAT and more broadly as well, we tend to use it where we just don't have quant data anywhere, because we've got quite broad topics. So we use it a lot for things like customer mindset, where there's not really one specific thing that you'd be tracking all the time, because what people are thinking and talking about changes constantly from day to day, depending what's going on. So I think that's the other value where we haven't got quant. It's just to help bring to life what's going on and what's top of mind for people as well.
When we see a metric or a touch point or a score kind of going up or down, we can then jump straight into our qual data and then get it from a customer's viewpoint and get that additional context as to what is actually going on. Because essentially, if we just had the quant stuff, we would know that a metric's going up, but actually we wouldn't really we'd just be able to say to the business, this is going up, and they would say to us, okay, well, why? And if we didn't have that qual stuff, we'd sort of, be sat there scratching our head. We would come up with some hypotheses, of course, but it's really great that we have all of those customer comments right from our customers themselves, and they have an awful lot of weight in our reporting and in the room when we're talking about it. So yeah, it just really brings it to life and gives us that context and the confidence to explain to the business why that score is moving.
We find that people remember the qual a lot better than the numbers, and they'll hook on to a story. So I think it's quite useful, just like Amelia said, it kind of gives you the why, but also just then to bring things to life and actually make them stick in people's heads. A couple of really powerful quotes people will regurgitate them for weeks afterwards, and you'll hear various people around the business talking about, oh, that guy who said this, and it really sticks in their heads, where I think if we just reported the quant, it wouldn't. So it works quite nicely alongside it to just make it a little bit more engaging, I suppose. I mean, we're seeing a lot of changes, particularly at the moment around cost of living, because obviously people are having to adapt how they shop, what they're spending to manage much tighter budgets than they were doing before. So in terms of the tool helping us, I think it just helps us get to grips with the things. It goes back to your point about whether you're looking in the data for something you know you're looking for or not. It's helping us get to grips with those changes that people are making that perhaps we wouldn't know about or wouldn't have recognised because we wouldn't know to ask for them.
So one of the great things about the open-ended questions in surveys is that we're essentially analysing what our customers want to talk about, as opposed to kind of pushing them through questions that we want to ask them. So it could essentially highlight a new kind of trend or theme coming through in the comments as well. So that's why we kind of have the tracking set up. If there are any kind of topics that we're interested in at any current moment, then we can also kind of set up specific themes around that as well to see how customers are talking about it.
That was one of the big draws for me on Wordnerds, is that there's a sort of capability to pull out organic topics as well without having to say to the tool, right, we want to categorize it like X, Y, Z, which a lot of tools, you've got to know what you're looking for before you get it. And then, anything broader that you're trying to do, or a topic where you just don't quite know how people talk about it, you get really stuck. And you maybe get a bunch of word clouds, but actually you're not far short of having to sit and read every single comment before you've got a rough idea of what people are talking about.
To confidently explain to the business what is going on behind the kind of robust quant data that we have, explain how customers are talking about it, what they are talking about, and pull comments that really kind of resonate with the audience in a way that quant data wouldn't be able to.
It has helped us just to make use of the huge amount of qual that we probably just let sit there previously, and we would maybe have a quick dig through occasionally if we were desperate. But I think we had a lot of underutilised customer feedback that we're actually now just able to do something with. And that is, I mean, from a customer perspective as well, that's huge, because actually their feedback is getting used, where previously I think we probably were just sitting on all of that. And having the tool has allowed us to join up all of these different sources of information from across the business, which again is much more powerful if you can take it all and tell a consistent story than if you're just looking at one subset of information. So it's been a really big unlocker for us in that sense.
We're quite good at listening to feedback in the moment. So, every week we sort of have a meeting on a Monday morning where we discuss what's coming through in the data, and the qual feeds into that as well. So we're kind of, we're being a bit more reactive, but we are looking at what customers are saying and we're taking it on board. And then also there's a piece around kind of us looking at the data and really owning that data and being the champions of the customer and looking to see what is coming through so that we can sort of push the data through to the relevant team so that they can be a bit more proactive, so almost giving them a bit of a heads up really before scores start to be affected by what we're seeing coming through.
All of this stuff goes to the most senior parts of the business, so we have a few regular forums and updates that we do where we share the latest information, we share customer satisfaction, we share what we think is driving scores up and down, where the big pain points are. And with that, what we always try and do is share some discussion points as well. So we'll sort of give people the overview of, okay, here's what's happening. Here are the things we think you need to be thinking about. And then that gets discussed. And, we really encourage people to think about, what does that mean for their area? So what should we be doing differently so that it can filter down? So those are probably our main outlets. So I think it's a really good example in Sainsbury's of them being brought into this at a very senior level. Because as soon as you get that buy-in at a senior level, it trickles down through the business, and people do then take action off the back of it, particularly if we see the same message coming up say 2 or 3 months in a row, we'll say, nope, this has gone down again, this has gone down again, this has gone down again. Then at that point, there'll be a lot of action taken off the back of it.
The comments that we get are really rich, and we start out with these kind of big themes, but then what we want to do is really understand within that theme, is it a specific product driving it? Is it specific customer type? How are they talking? What's their situation? How can we really truly understand what they're trying to say to us, and what are the real pain points?
In terms of what's next, probably sharing this more and more widely across the business. So we have certain forums that we go to with our information at the moment, certain groups of stakeholders that are really tapped into it. One of the big things I think we want to do is start getting this out to all of our retail colleagues as well, which is quite a different type of stakeholder. They will be really interested in their store alone and how they're doing, but actually if we can start to sort of theme and group the qual up a lot more and make it really meaningful for them, and actually pull out some really clear actions, but in a very automated way, because obviously we haven't got time to go to every store and say, right, your main themes are these and you therefore need to do X, Y, Z off the back of it. Actually, if we can find a way of almost automating that, but helping make it much more tangible for them, I think that will step us on hugely, because they aren't used to using this information, and we'll look at a handful of comments in their store and say, oh yeah, this customer had a bad time, but this one had a really good time, so what am I going to do against it? So if we can actually help to sort of solidify some of that and say, well, no, actually that's 30% of your customers have given you a really negative comment, and these are the problems and the actions you need to take, then I think that becomes really powerful. So that's probably a longer term one, but certainly something that we want to do in future is to sort of bring this information to them, because at the moment we share the qual comments with them, but we don't sort of try and group it up in any way. We don't help them navigate the themes that are coming through, really. And given they're on a very much a sort of 24 hours running my shop, turning everything around, they won't be thinking about longer term trends or themes that they're seeing coming through all of the time. They just haven't got the headspace to do that, because the roles are so kind of full on within such a short space of time. So yeah, I definitely think that's the desire longer term.
So and when we have catch up, she will really want to know what's going on, what's top of mind for us. She'll be really engaged, really excited to find stuff out, and then pretty much 9 times out of 10, a day or two later, she'll send me an email. I've had a look at the data, I've had a look at Twitter, and I found this and this, and so it's not, it doesn't feel like it's constantly us sort of feeding in. It is always quite a two-way process. It is a partnership, and we do collaborate to make it better.